All right, now Netflix is actively working on a live-action Yu Yu Hakusho series.
That's okay. You can keep it.
Animation is dope. The medium has given us some of the most creative and compelling pieces of art that could not exist in any other medium. For some time now, Japan has been at the forefront of the industry, producing some of the best works, along with some questionable ones. And anime has only gotten more popular in recent years. I've been watching it for basically my whole life. Some may call me a weeb. I prefer anime enjoyer, but in all my years of anime enjoying, you know what's never happened? When I'm watching an angsty teenage boy dual-wielding box cutters and using his gas-propelled grappling hooks to charge towards a naked man-eating giant, the last question on my mind is, hey, I wonder what this would look like in live action. But I was still blessed with an answer, and that answer was... Back in 2020, the year that keeps on giving, Netflix announced that a live-action Yu Yu Hakusho series was in the works. I didn't think much of it, but I honestly should have known better than to call Netflix on their bluff, because they fully intended to deliver. And just a couple weeks ago, Netflix revealed the main cast for the upcoming series, and the images sent me into a Winter Soldier episode where I was forced to relive past war crimes against animation. Animation being adapted to live action is nothing new. It's been happening for decades, and the incentive is pretty obvious. Creating something from scratch is generally more difficult than remaking or iterating on an existing property. The same goes for sequels and reboots. Existing IPs already have established worlds, characters, and magic systems, but most importantly, a built-in audience. The sudden influx of superfluous Star Wars and Marvel content is no coincidence. I mean, that Disney Plus library ain't gonna fill itself up. Their most popular franchises and classic films are prime candidates for milking. Hollywood as a whole has set the precedent that nothing is sacred. Anything and everything will get additional content that nobody asked for. And in the past decade, they've really set their sights on Japanese animation. With shows like Attack on Titan and Demon Slayer propelling anime into the mainstream, millions of new viewers are gonna go looking for more anime. And it's a no-brainer for media companies to try and capitalize on that. Anime has grown beyond just being on Crunchyroll, and major streaming services want a piece of that pie. Hulu cutting a deal with Funimation to stream shows that they license. Netflix buying exclusive streaming rights to Evangelion for a rumored $3 million. Even Amazon tried to step in with Anime Strike. Y'all remember that shit? Rest in peace. But Netflix in particular had another idea on how to capitalize on the anime craze.
Relax, Light. You're asleep. You're asleep and you're dreaming of some 8-foot-tall, demon-looking motherfucker.
Oh, yes.
Live-action adaptations are something that have been tried and failed again and again and again. So why is it that these films and shows are so consistently bad? Are the people behind them just so horribly incompetent and they would actually work with a better cast and crew? While sometimes the case, I honestly think the reason is far simpler than that. Live-action anime adaptations just don't work. One of the primary factors that make the best animated films so great is the fact that they're animated. Just like how certain scripts are better suited for the stage rather than the screen, some stories just lend themselves to the medium of animation. In 1981, two Disney animators introduced the 12 basic principles of animation, which are still used to this day. Of these 12 principles, there are two that I want to highlight: squash and stretch, and exaggeration. Squash and stretch is when an object or even a character's features are elongated or compressed to emphasize speed, momentum, and weight. Exaggeration is when an expression or action is taken to the absolute limit to really sell you on it. These two principles are why you get freeze frames like this, and this. When people isolate these kinds of shots, then run off and go, LMAO, XD, his neck is literally broken, trash animation, L+ ratio, young boy better, they're kinda missing the point. Animation isn't meant to be viewed frame by frame, and these impossibly distorted in-betweens exist as just a single part of an entire motion. When played back in full, the scene has a sense of speed and fluidity that would be lost with more realistic movement. Prioritizing conveying the feeling and impact of a scene over adhering to realism works in animation because that in itself makes the scene feel more realistic. Anime fight scenes aren't bound to the same rules as real life, and when they try to choreograph a fight straight to live action, it just ends up looking like
Ven y trata de golpearme si es que puedes. La clemencia es una opción que tú no tienes. Veo que te estás cansando de intentarlo, pero tú solo sigues fallando. Nunca ganarás, estaremos juntos, luchando hasta el final de los tiempos. Y cuando te derrote, reiniciarás. Y aquí te esperaré una vez más. Estás hecho de...
yo, wait a minute, this shit is kind of fire. Anime characters can move like rubber, so you can imagine a story about a boy who is literally made of rubber is better suited to be adapted to animation and not real life. Meanwhile, a series of fantasy novels with a heavy focus on politics and a bit of soft magic lends itself to being adapted into a live-action drama series. Different stories, different mediums. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse's low frame rate animation and line work meant to emulate the style of comic books is only possible because it's animated. On the topic of comic books, because I know somebody's gonna bring it up, what about comic book movies? Look at the MCU, they can successfully adapt comics to the big screen, so why not anime? To which I say, American comics function very differently from manga, and as such, so do their adaptations. Manga tends to be created from the vision of a single author, who's usually also the artist. While they don't always start with an end in sight, they do eventually end, most of the time. Marvel and DC Comics, however, feature characters made decades ago that are regularly reimagined by different writers and artists, each with their own interpretations of the characters. Although they tend to have consistent narrative frames, they're not bound to any single continuity. What is and is not canon depends entirely on which universe you're talking about. To the vast majority of people, comic book characters are just pop culture icons. You don't have to have ever picked up a single comic book to be familiar with Spider-Man's origin story. Shit, I knew a girl in high school who looked me dead in the eyes and asked me what's the difference between Marvel and DC while wearing a Superman crop top. Comic characters differ from a character like, say, Naruto, who despite having no shortage of non-canon material, is still closely tied to a single continuous narrative. An industry built around continuously reimagining characters unsurprisingly works as material to be reimagined into live action. Also, the MCU still has to make major changes to make the characters transition smoothly, and this is very evident in the costume design. Superheroes wear some goofy ass shit, and episode 6 of WandaVision demonstrates just how weird it would look if the costumes were taken one for one from the comics. Character designs have to be altered and subdued, or the audience's suspension of disbelief goes out the window. They have to convince us that in the context of this world, people willingly dress like this. This concept seems to be something foreign to live-action anime, as the costumes usually come out looking like mediocre cosplay. Anime designs can get pretty outlandish, and any attempt to faithfully recreate them in real life results in a cast of colorful clowns. Regardless of how good any given actor is, if they pull up on screen rocking that Yugi Moto hairstyle, the show becomes impossible to take seriously. Like, man, look at this guy. His hat is literally blending into his hair. But anime characters aren't just exaggerated in their appearance and movements, but also their personalities. Eccentric, over-the-top characters are a staple of anime that can only really exist within the medium. It's incredibly jarring when you see a live-action actor trying to embody the same. You know what? Let me just show you.
Yes, you are. You're spy, cowboy, bounty hunter for hire. Wake up! I have a job for you. We have to find Velazio before he does spooky bad things.
For the more fantastical aspects of anime that can't be done in real life, they're made with CGI, which, if you weren't aware, is also a form of animation. So if you have to already rely so heavily on animation, why not go all the way and just let something be 100% animated? Look at the 2019, live action Lion King, an adaptation of an animated musical drama that doesn't feature a single human character. Elon Musk has yet to make good on his promise to make catgirls, so we don't quite have singing and dancing animals just yet. As a result, 3D animation has to carry this film. Aside from the opening scene of a sunrise, the movie was entirely made using CGI. Modern visual entertainment has this obsession with hyperrealism, even though it doesn't always work to the product's benefit. Lion King's original 2D animation allowed the characters to be extremely expressive and, well, animated. When I see these realistic lions flapping their gums, it doesn't look to me like they're singing. It just feels like I'm watching a wildlife documentary with Beyonce singing the background music. Seeing true-to-life animals acting like humans looks hella jarring and lands right in the uncanny valley because animals don't do that. When you see Wile E. Coyote pull a 200-pound anvil out of his foreskin, chase a roadrunner in Mach 3, fall to his death, and then walk it off like a minor inconvenience, you're not taken out of it. Given the absurd nature of the cartoon, it's what you've come to expect. But no matter the in-universe rules, when you're dealing with hyper-realism, you expect things to behave realistically, and if it doesn't, it just looks disturbing. Some things just fundamentally cannot work in live action, but that doesn't mean that anime has no place in live action filmmaking. It's led to some of Hollywood's greatest movies, not through adaptation, but inspiration. The Matrix film series borrows heavily from Ghost in the Shell. Its themes, atmosphere, and aesthetic are all incredibly reminiscent of the 1995 film, yet The Matrix still remains distinct. Christopher Nolan's Inception draws from Satoshi Kon's Paprika. Another Kon film, Perfect Blue, inspired Darren Aronofsky's Black Swan and Requiem for a Dream. Guillermo del Toro's Pacific Rim pays homage to kaiju and mecha anime like Evangelion. All of these films make for better live-action anime than any direct adaptation. If you want a movie that more closely adheres to the source material, there's Edge of Tomorrow, which adapts the Japanese light novel All You Need Is Kill. Instead of adapting anime, an audio-visual medium, into another audio-visual medium, adapting a book inherently adds something new to the story. Since the novel didn't already have an anime, the studio was free to change up elements that wouldn't work in live action without any backlash. Good luck trying to make Zoro without bright green hair and not getting death threats from fans. Or good luck trying to give Zoro bright green hair without it looking completely ridiculous. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. Making live action anime will always be a losing battle because you can never please everybody, if anybody. The original anime will always be there, so another version of the story that removes it from the context of the art form it was designed for has a 1-in-1 chance of being worse. Cause like the old saying goes, if it ain't broke, don't fucking touch it, Netflix. I rest my case. See y'all in the next one.